This is Valley News Live at 5.
The city of Minneapolis will now pay $27 million to settle a civil lawsuit from George Floyd's family over his death in police custody. Floyd family attorney Ben Crump called a news conference this afternoon to make the announcement. The settlement includes $500,000 for the South Minneapolis neighborhood that includes the 38th and Chicago intersection that has been blocked by barricades since Floyd's death. We are rolling into what's looking like a fantastic weekend. On a quiet note, never a bad thing. Let's find out from Nathan Hutch if it'll stay that way. Hutch?
That's okay, Henry. You can call me Nathan. As we take a look at these temperatures, they are spectacular out to the west. We have 50 in Jamestown. At Grand Forks, you're on the edge of beautiful weather as well, 42 there. Notice the blue colors here. That's where things remain cooler, and this lines up very nicely with where the visible satellite shows the white area. That's the snowpack on the ground from our system that moved through the other day. Cloud-free skies with a south breeze this evening means temperatures won't fall too quickly. We'll be in the 30s all evening long here in the FM area. Overnight, we will sneak into those 20s, however, by morning. Grand Forks looking lovely as well. It's definitely jacket weather this evening. Now, coming up, there is a massive storm system that's going to be working its way through the Rockies. You'll hear about it this weekend. I'll have details on how that may impact our weather and just how warm we're going to get on this warm up this weekend. All that coming up in a few minutes.
All right, thanks, Hutch. A jury has found a Fargo man guilty of killing his girlfriend and setting her apartment on fire. 44-year-old Sheldon Davis faced charges of murder, arson, and endangering by fire or explosion in connection with the August 2019 death of 52-year-old Denise Anderson. Court documents say Davis went over to his friend's house after the fire and told his friend that he had done something bad. The friend told police that Davis confessed to leaving the stove on at the apartment and said he had talked to him before about wanting to kill Anderson because of pending domestic and sexual assault charges she filed against him. During 2 jailhouse interviews with Valley News Live, Davis maintained his innocence. A 55-year-old man accused of shooting at police in downtown Fargo is now going to trial. 55-year-old Henry Aiken is charged with attempted murder, aggravated assault, terrorizing, reckless endangerment, and unlawful possession of a firearm. According to court documents, he was waving a revolver with a laser outside the entrance of the Radisson Hotel on November 15, 2019. A Fargo police officer told Aiken to drop his weapon, and that's when he fired his gun at the officer, who was not hurt. The trial is set to begin May 25th. One woman is now in jail after a crash in downtown Moorhead. 19-year-old Kiaria Kukowski was arrested for reckless driving and fleeing from police. Officers say she was originally spotted speeding on I-94 from Fargo into Moorhead. An officer tried to pull her over, but she didn't stop. The officer called off the pursuit because of the driver's speed and erratic driving heading from the interstate to downtown Moorhead. 2 officers were following the car when they saw it hit another vehicle at 8th Street and Main Avenue. The Minnesota State Fire Marshal is now releasing the cause of a fire that destroyed a home in Dilworth. Officials determined an electrical issue caused the fire, which is consistent with information provided by the homeowner. He was taken to a hospital for smoke inhalation. His condition is not known at this time. The Justice Department expects to file criminal charges against at least 100 more people accused of taking part in the insurrection at the Capitol. 320 people already face criminal charges stemming from the January 6th attack on the Capitol. And in court documents, the Justice Department says it expects to file charges against at least 100 more, stating, quote, "The investigation and prosecution of the Capitol attack will likely be one of the largest in American history, both in terms of the number of defendants prosecuted and the nature and volume of the evidence." Today, President Biden is celebrating his first big legislative victory, the passage of his $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill, and beginning the process of explaining how it's a big win for communities around the country. Alice Barr has the latest from Washington.
A Rose Garden celebration today as President Biden and top congressional Democrats tout the newly signed $1.9 trillion COVID relief law.
To every American watching, help is here and we will not stop working for you.
The White House saying $1,400 stimulus checks could start hitting bank accounts this weekend.
This is going to make a difference in the lives of millions of people in very concrete, specific ways.
No Republicans were invited to the event after none supported the bill. They're blasting it for adding to the deficit and going beyond COVID needs.
This wasn't a bill to finish off the pandemic. It was a multi-trillion-dollar Trojan horse full of bad old liberal ideas.
The president, vice president, and their spouses will all hit the road starting next week to explain how the new law will benefit communities. In his first primetime address, President Biden set a new timeline, promising all adults will be eligible for a vaccine by May 1st, with enough doses to go around by the end of May, and the goal of safe, small gatherings by the 4th of July.
Where we not only mark our independence as a nation, but we begin to mark our independence from this virus.
Republicans vying for credit, pointing out former President Trump started the vaccine rollout. But President Biden has dramatically increased the pace, raising hopes that the end of this year-long crisis is finally within reach.
The president says the real work begins now to implement the COVID relief law and get desperately needed help to Americans. Officials say President Biden is promising strict oversight to be sure it's done right. Today, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz announced that he's relaxing restrictions as the country slowly heads towards something closer to normal. Walz said he was changing COVID-19 mitigation requirements because daily case numbers have been dropping in the state, as have positivity rates, hospitalizations, and deaths. Walz says social gatherings will be allowed for up to 50 people outdoors or 15 people indoors. Bars and restaurants can increase capacity to 75% with a limit of 250 people. Entertainment venues, gyms, fitness centers, and pools can increase to 50% capacity. The occupancy limit has been removed for religious services and in salons, but social distancing is still required, and Minnesotans are still strongly encouraged to continue wearing masks.
And this is a big deal. This is a race against this virus, and I respect this virus's tenacity. I don't underestimate what it can do to us. And these variants that are out there, and you'll hear from Commissioner Malcolm, pose a risk. But we can control what happens to them.
Governor Walz says that since the state is identifying variants and outbreaks more quickly, they'll be able to combat them by shutting down smaller areas like counties rather than shutting down the entire state. He says this is why testing is still important. To stay on top of the latest COVID vaccine-related information, you can use our VNL vaccine tracker. Visit our website or open your phone camera right now and point it at the QR code on your screen, then tap the link that pops up. When the pandemic is behind us and a chapter in the history books, we'll have a place to visit some of the key moments that marked this past year. Natalie Brand reports from Washington on the growing collection of artifacts that tell the story of COVID-19.
When critical care nurse Sandra Lindsay became the first American vaccinated against the coronavirus, it was a turning point that would go down in history.
I hope this marks the beginning to the end of a very painful time.
That Pfizer vial now carefully preserved at the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History. Northwell Health in New York donated Lindsay's vaccination materials and scrubs, marking the beginning of a growing COVID-19 collection.
We want to make sure that we're documenting the story from multiple perspectives: patients, practitioners, scientists, politicians, teachers, all sorts of individuals for whom the pandemic has had a very direct and immediate impact on their lives.
Curator Alexandra Lord says the Smithsonian even put out a call to the public soliciting ideas and photos. So far, they've collected more than 600, documenting both the heartache and the resilience of Americans.
How do you think this time in history is going to be remembered?
It's really hard. I do think that this will be seen as a major seminal event in American history, and that it will mark a period of before and after. It does seem that there will be some radical changes just in simple things like perhaps how we work on a day-to-day basis, but perhaps even how we think about the inequities in our society.
Lord says the collection will help ensure the impact of the pandemic is not forgotten, nor the advances in medicine, which are starting to pull the nation back from the most significant public health crisis in a century. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Washington.
The museum is still closed to the public, but eventually the vaccine artifacts will be part of a broader exhibit called In Sickness and in Health that will explore America's efforts to contain, control, and cure illnesses. Good news for Twins fans. They will now be allowed at Target Field for the 2021 season, starting with the home opener on April 8th. Officials at Target Field say the safety of their fans is still the main priority, and they're now reviewing the new directives and putting together a reopening plan. Fans can expect an announcement, including ballpark protocols and ticket plans, in the near future. The TV voice of Bison football is talking about something other than football these days. March is Colon Cancer Awareness Month, and Brian Shawn was recently diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer. It has the strong voice you hear on TV trembling when he thinks about cancer taking him away from his wife and daughter.
I was really scared about that. You know, I was really, really scared about leaving them and not being there for them and not being there for my daughter when she's going through these important stages of life.
Tonight on Valley News Live at 10, hear more about the crucial catch that led to an early detection of his cancer and what's next for Brian and his family. We are less than 24 hours away from kickoff as the Bison get set to take on Illinois State tomorrow at the Fargo Dome. The pregame show starts at 1:30. Kickoff is set for 2:30. You can catch all the action on KVLY. Uber and Lyft are ready to make some changes to make your rides safer. That's next on Valley News Live at 5.
Afternoon temperatures soared today to 50 degrees in Jamestown, 54 in Carrington, while we saw 30s where we are melting snow. Here is a look at the Devil's Lake Basin. Beautiful blue skies carry us into a warm weekend, but not without growing pains. All the latest in your hour-by-hour forecast right after this.